Let's now have a look at one of the most powerful functions available on the AppMaster.io platform, which is search, which you'll be able to use for any of the data models that you create. It does have a lot of input parameters, so let's go through them one by one. First of all, we have offset, a number, and this defines the raw number from which the search will start. So for example, if you put 10 over here, the search will only start from row number 11 and onwards. In this case, offset starts at 0. Limit, on the other hand, limits the number of records that will be in the output of the search. So if we put a 10 over here, the maximum number of records that we'll get from the search will be 10, in the order that they appear in the database. With sort order and sort by, we can define sort for our search. The sort by is the column by which we want to sort our data, and it should be in snake case. To understand how snake case work, refer to the documentation. The sort order is the order of the sort, which can either be ascending or descending. As well, refer to the documentation to see how that should look like. Then we have with, and as explained in our with special video, this allows us to output not only the data model itself, so users in this case, but also the related data models, if it has one-to-one or one-to-many relationships with other models. So for example, in this case, we can not only output the user itself, but also for all the users that we find with our parameters, also output flights for them to be able to use them later on. After that, we have search and search in, which I'll explain in just a moment, and all of the fields of this particular data model. Any fields that you have actually connected to data output or have set a default value to will be combined with an AND. For example, first name equals Max and last name equals Keller. Okay, all of these searches are performed, if you're familiar with SQL, with an I-like operator and with percent signs on either sides. What does this mean? This means that the search is case insensitive and will find all the records with that particular substring. Okay, let's have a look. I have created a sample database with some users, and let's try it out with our searches. So let's say that first name, we want it to be equal to MA. Now remember that in this case, we'll get all of the records which have a first name where MA, case insensitive, appears as a substring. Let's save the schema and test it out. And as you can see in the result, we get all of the records where the first name contains MA in some shape or another. For example, over here, and over here. Fantastic. Let's look at another example where we actually using SQL wildcards. And there are two main ones, which are the percent sign representing one or more characters and an underscore representing just one character. So for example, imagine that we want all names which have a substring of M, then some number of characters, and then K. Let's save the scheme and test it out. And as you can see in the results, we get two first names, which are Maverick and Mark. As you can see, both starting with M, having a certain number of characters after that, and then ending with K. Great, let's move on to the next example. And in this case, let's actually combine two different fields. So we want our first name to be the same as before. And then we also want our last name to be equal, let's say, to Zach. And now in the result, what you can see is that we actually just get one record with Mark and Zach as the last name. They were combined in an AND statement, and we only got one record. Great, and let's now look at search and search in, some of the more advanced functions. So what this allows us to do is to actually search for a specific value, not just one specific column, but actually several of them, and combine them in an OR statement. So imagine that we would actually like to search for the value MA again, case insensitive. And we would like to search it not only in the first name, but also in the last name. So if MA is contained either in the first name or the last name or both. For this, we define here the columns that we want to search in snake case. In this case, first name and last name. And we save the scheme and we publish. What this allows us to do is to actually not combine these two in an AND statement, as would be if we are using the normal fields, but can combine them with an OR. So let's look at the result. And as you can see, we get all the records where MA appears in some shape or another, either in the first name or the last name. So we get the same as with our first request, but we also get Alex, which doesn't have MA in his first name, but does have MA in his last name. Great. And last but not least, we have these special fields over here, which you'll have available in case that you have a one-to-many or many-to-many relationship with another data model. In here, you'll be able to define if you have the with parameter enabled for that specific data model, how those related data models will be outputted in your search results. So for example, here we'll be able to limit the number of flights that we get from each of the users that we actually find in our database, sort them, and also search in them and filter. Now keep in mind that if we filter these related data model, for example, with flights, over here, we are actually not filtering the users, so the primary data model. We are just filtering the flights which will be available in the data objects that we actually get from the search. And that was it. Search, quite a powerful function that you can use to look up several objects in your database.